Revealed, 7 heartwarming secrets of the Imperial Harem that transformed lives forever. Sarah felt a rush of hope surging within her, invigorating her tired spirit as she stumbled upon that old box in her grandmother's attic. Inside lay tales of resilience, wrapping around her like a comforting embrace. Each story echoed with powerful messages, illuminating pathways for her and her 2 cherished children, Ellie and Chris. Sarah's heart soared, knowing that these vibrant tales could unite her fractured community. The Imperial Harem wasn't just a world of opulence. It was a treasure trove of relatable struggles and perseverance. Every evening, Chris clutched the heavy book, his voice weaving through the air, bringing characters to life as Sarah and Ellie listened, captivated. Her heart swelled as Chris's eyes sparkled with excitement, each word reinforcing the values of loyalty and strength that they all craved. "We could do this, why no?" he exclaimed one night. "Share these stories with everyone." Sarah's pulse quickened. Could storytelling really reconnect their small town, fractured by hardship and uncertainty? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Inspired by her children's joy, Sarah organized a gathering at the local park. Flyers, hastily scrawled on colorful paper, spread like wildfire through the neighborhood. Families arrived, and as the sun dipped low, illuminating their faces with warm golden tones, the air thrummed with connection. Laughter bubbled, stories flowed, and suddenly, it felt as if they were a family again, woven together by shared struggles and dreams. They weren't just strangers living side by side anymore. They were fighting for each other, and it felt good. But then, the storm clouds rolled in. John Stevenson, a wealthy newcomer, announced his plans to gentrify their neighborhood, promising shiny new businesses that would push families like Sarah's out of their homes. Sarah's heart sank as whispers of uncertainty spread through the gathering. The warmth of the evening dimmed, replaced by an unsettling chill. Was everything she had fought for about to be ripped away? Just when she began to doubt her strength, an elderly resident approached her with tear-filled eyes, clutching a worn letter. "Thank you for showing us we can come together again," she whispered, her words igniting something deep within Sarah. Here lay the hope of unity, the very essence of what the harem stories had taught her. She must fight, not just for her family but for all families who deserved a better life. As the town hall meeting approached, anxiety gnawed at Sarah. Would her voice carry weight against the newcomers? Would she make a difference? The night of the meeting arrived, the air thick with tension. Hearts were pounding all around her as she glanced at familiar faces, gathered together, waiting for her words. Just as anxiety threatened to swallow her whole, a ruckus erupted at the back of the room. With her heart racing, Sarah wondered if this was mere chaos or perhaps the very spark they needed to unify against the looming threat. The future of their home lay in the balance. Would they stand together? Would her own dreams survive this test? The commotion in the back of the room grew louder, pulling Sarah's focus away from her fluttering heart. A small group of teenagers burst through the doors, animated and full of energy. They were carrying makeshift signs made from cardboard and markers. "Save our homes. Read one," while another insisted, "Community matters." It was clear they had come to rally support, and though they were young, their enthusiasm lit a fire within the older crowd. Sarah felt a rush of relief mixed with inspiration. The room needed this youthful spirit. It needed hope. The worries that had begun to seep into her heart started to wane. She turned to the familiar faces surrounding her, connecting their glances as she shared a small smile. "We're not alone," she thought. Together, they could stand up. The town hall was packed, every chair filled, a sea of concerned faces waiting for someone to lead them. Just then, Chris raised his hand and caught her attention. "Can I speak?" he asked, his voice steady but filled with a child's sincerity. Sarah's heart swelled with pride. Though momentarily caught off guard, she motioned for him to come forward, sensing something special pulsing through this moment. Once at the front, Chris stood tall. "We all have stories," he began, his young voice reaching every corner of the room. The stories from the harem, and all the stories from our neighbors. They teach us to fight for what we love. Every eye was now on him, including Sarah S., filled with astonishment as her son continued to speak, unearthing a confident eloquence she had never witnessed before. The elders nodded, affirming as Chris recounted tales of bravery mingled with hope. The stories of standout women by the side of emperors found a resonance with their current struggle against gentrification. It was a reflection of the very essence of their community, a reminder that they were not just fighting for homes, but for their shared identities and aspirations. As the audience felt the pull of unity begin to swell, Sarah felt a surge inside her, igniting the fervor she thought had dimmed. Watching Chris command the room brought with it an overwhelming sense of purpose. He glanced back at her, his eyes sparkling with determination, invigorating her courage. "Let us stand up," she suddenly called out, pushing through that lingering anxiety. "If these stories can inspire us, how can our stories not do the same?" The energy in the room shifted, eyes brightened. There was an awakening, raw, emotional, and deep. One by one, families began recounting their stories, the perspective from the elderly, who had seen the neighborhood grow, to the young families who had built their dreams there. Each voice mattered, and as they spoke, the crowd began to respond with cheers and chants. Sarah's heart swelled as she realized the walls were closing in on John Stevenson's plans. They were becoming a united front, armed with courage, built from the very stories she had found in the attic. Amidst the swelling passion, though, a stark realization hit Sarah hard. Would the love and unity in this room be enough to turn the tides? Nothing was guaranteed. As more people stood and joined in the rallying cry, she felt the weight of uncertainty gather like a storm cloud overhead. In the midst of the chaos, someone caught her eye through the glass door at the back of the hall. It was Stevenson himself, observing the scene, an unreadable expression on his face. What did he plan to do? The stakes were rising, and the battle for their homes had only just begun. Could they sustain this momentum for the fight ahead? Would their stories truly change the course of their community's fate? The night had transformed into a questioning storm, the air thick with anticipation for what was to come. The energy in the town hall hung like a thick fog of anticipation. As voices rose in support of their shared cause, Sarah held her breath. She scanned the room, searching for the faces that reflected her own fear and hope. The palpable spirit of unity ignited as more stories were told, and through the sounds of laughter and tears, she felt a shift. This was more than just a community meeting. It was a movement. Then Chris stepped back, flushed with the sincerity of his words. His youthful face still held traces of the boy who loved superheroes. Yet in this moment, he was a beacon of hope and embodiment of everything she dreamed he could become. She wanted to wrap her arms around him, but there was an urgency to act. "Let's have a vote," someone shouted from the back. The suggestion ignited a flurry of murmurs throughout the room. A vote could solidify their resolve, a way for everyone to show their commitment. "We're standing together," Sarah shouted, boosted by a rush of adrenaline. "Let's take a show of hands. Who is ready to make a stand against Stevenson?" The whole room erupted in shouts of encouragement. She could feel the heat in her cheeks as she raised her own hand high. The air was electric. The movement to take charge blossomed before her eyes. Families answered her call. One after another, hands shot up throughout the crowd, adults and teens, new residents and old, staying not just for their homes, but for the future of their community. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she noticed Stevenson's shadow shift at the door. He finally stepped inside. The crowd quieted slightly, eyes darting nervously. Sarah felt her heart race. What would he say? Would he try to squelch their growing determination? Enough of this nonsense, Stevenson barked, his voice slicing through the silent space. He made his way down the aisle, commanding attention with each deliberate step. "You all think a few stories and some cardboard signs will stop progress? This is about development, about moving forward." A murmur of discontent rippled through the room. Anger bubbled up in Sarah's chest as she processed his words. What was he moving toward? Looming high-rises and a fragmented community? Development. Chris shouted from the back, his voice unexpectedly strong. What do we gain from that if we lose our homes? Sarah caught a glimmer of pride. Her son was speaking up again, profound and real. That Stevenson's gaze shot toward Chris. "Young man, You don't know what you're asking for, he replied smoothly, but the shake in his voice betrayed his uncertainty. Sarah stepped forward, her heart pounding. What we're asking for is of more value than money. It's our lives, our families, our legacy. The crowd erupted again, fueled by Sarah's fire. Just as a chant began to form, she saw Stevenson's expression shift into something grim, calculating. He was a shark, watching the frenzy of fish darting around him, but she could sense a new determination spreading through the room. Let us not just make noise, she urged, her voice echoing despite the tumult. Let us organize our stories, our voices. Let us present a united front. We can work together for a future that doesn't erase who we are. A wave of hope washed over her. Could they actually do this? And then, without warning, there was an unexpected crash from behind them. A glass shattered, followed by panicked gasps. Something had broken through the movement's momentum, a new danger rearing its head, and all eyes turned back toward the door. What had just happened? Was it an accident or a warning shot from the forces trying to silence them? The air was thick with confusion, leaving Sarah's heart racing in the midst of chaos. Stay calm, she shouted, but deep down, a chill crept into her veins. What did the shattered glass mean for their united front? Did a storm of opposition lie just ahead? As the crowd's electric energy coiled leather-tight with suspense, Sarah's resolve grew with every thudding heartbeat. The looming battle was yet to take shape, and the next move remained uncertain. Would their stories stand strong against the crack of that glass? Would they stand together, or was the coming challenge about to unravel everything they'd fought for? The air thickened with tension as everyone turned to see what had happened. A couple of chairs toppled over in the sudden movement, and wide eyes darted toward the source of the noise. Sarah's heart sank. Had someone been hurt? The glass lay shattered on the floor, fragments glistening like lost hopes under the fluorescent lights. Is everyone okay? Chris's voice rose above the murmurs, his youthful determination underscoring the moment. Sarah could feel his anxiety mirrored in the eyes around her. A few older residents moved closer to inspect the scene, but it was too quiet, too unsure. I'll check it out, Sarah said, stepping cautiously toward the door. Each footfall felt heavy, weighted by the potential fallout of this interruption. She swallowed hard, trying to steady her racing heart. She couldn't let fear take hold that as she neared. She noticed the figure standing just outside, one of the teenagers from the center of the movement, Alex, visibly shaken and looking toward the crowd in dismay. His hands trembled slightly as he brushed glass shards away from his sneakers. I am sorry, Alex stammered, his eyes wide. The protest signs were too much, and my bag knocked the glass off the table. I didn't mean to no one's hurt, right? Sarah asked, kneeling beside him while she brushed her hand over the splintered glass, feeling the coolness beneath her fingertips. There was a weight to each scattered piece, reminding her of everything they had to lose. And no, I wanted to be part of this, he replied, determination surfacing anew. I'm just so afraid it can all fall apart. His admission resonated deep within her. Fear that was the true enemy looming over them. Fear had driven Stevenson into their midst. Fear had shattered the moment, and fear threatened to unravel their hopes. But in that moment, Sarah also felt something stronger, the flame of unity building around her. Listen, she said firmly, looking into his eyes. This isn't just about protest signs or chants. It's about us, about who we want to be together, having each other's backs, no matter what. A ripple of affirmations began to swell behind her, voices rising in solidarity. She turned back to the crowd, emboldened. These setbacks won't stop us. We are a community. We won't let fear hold us back. We stand for our homes, our families, our story. Chris stepped forward, joining her, his youthful energy igniting even more passion among the townspeople. If we let intimidation stop us, then they won. We're fighting for something bigger than ourselves. We can't let them break our spirit. The crowd erupted in cheers. Suddenly, the shattered glass didn't feel like a barrier, but rather a challenge. Each person was reminded that they were the fabric of this town, woven together by shared dreams and struggles. But as the cheers echoed, Sarah's gaze caught Stevenson's expression. He had stepped back, a new shadow crossing his face. The confidence he exuded moments ago was starting to crack. She could feel the tide shifting, however slowly. See, she whispered to Chris. We can bring him down. But a chill shot through her when she realized that while their voices grew louder and stronger, the forces behind Stevenson were still lurking in the shadows. They wouldn't let this resistance go unchallenged. Just then, the town hall doors swung wide open with a loud bang, and a group of men in suits stepped inside. They carried an air of authority that sent a hush reverberating through the crowd. Sarah's stomach twisted. "This isn't over yet," she murmured, dread coating her words. What would they bring? Another round of intimidation? Or would they try to silence the growing wave of defiance that had taken form in the town hall? The real battle was only just beginning, and Sarah knew they had to be ready. With her heart pounding, she took a deep breath, bracing herself for what came next. The stakes had never been higher. Would they stand united when the clouds of doubt surged again? The men in suits advanced, their polished shoes echoing ominously on the wooden floor. The crowd was still, eyes wide and hearts racing, each person bracing for the storm that was about to engulf them. Sarah felt the air shift, moving from heated determination to icy trepidation. The lead man stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "Good evening," he said, his voice smooth but biting, sending chills through the room. "I'm Mr. Jennings. We're here to discuss the recent activities going on at our town hall." Sarah clenched her fists, fighting the urge to retreat. She could feel Chris beside her, his body tense and ready to confront whatever came next. "Activities?" Chris shot back, visible defiance in his voice. "You mean the protest? We're just wanting to preserve our community." Mr. Jennings's lips curled into a slight smile that didn't reach his eyes. "A noble endeavor, but misguided. We're here to inform you that the land you're fighting for is undergoing significant development. And your efforts, while charming, won't change that." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The urgency of the situation hit harder than any symbolic broken glass. Sarah felt time freeze as fear morphed into the intangible essence of fury. Disbelief swept over the crowd, but she could also sense their resolve building beneath the surface. "You can't just take our homes," Sarah shouted, her voice steady, fueled by the passion that lit every nerve in her body. "This is our story. We won't let you erase it." The crowd murmured in agreement, igniting sparks of defiance so fierce they could rival the stark fluorescent lighting overhead. Mr. Jennings raised a hand to quiet them, but the room was alive with energy. "We have plans in place. This is about progress," he replied dismissively, as if brushing a speck of dust off his jacket. "And the rest of the world won't wait for your quaint attachments to what was." Sarah squared her shoulders. "Quaint. This isn't just some past relic to get bulldozed over. This is our family, our friends, our lives." The crowd erupted again, voices merging into a harmonious roar. The room vibrated with shared memories, barbecues on the block, spontaneous road trips, and the collective heartbeats that pulsed through each household. Mr. Jennings took a step back, momentarily stunned by the tide of emotion crashing against his cold facade. In that moment, Sarah realized something significant. They weren't just a collection of faces protesting an unwelcome development. They were a family, bound by love and painful history. But she could already see doubt creeping back into the faces of her neighbors. What if Mr. Jennings had a point? What if this was a lost cause? She took a deep breath, searching for the right words, hoping to cradle that tiny flicker of hope bursting within her. "Look around," she urged, eyes darting from face to face. "The world can try to move on, but we're strong enough to make a stand. We're not just fighting for land, we're fighting for a future where our kids can grow and thrive." As Sarah spoke, she could see her words planting seeds of hope among the crowd. An elderly woman was nodding, a little girl was clutching her mother, and Chris was staring at her, wide-eyed, as though he had just discovered a new hero. Mr. Jennings's expression hardened again, but it was clear the tide was shifting. "Your voices may be loud now, but you will find yourselves alone when the approval sits on my desk. A new era is upon us." Just then, a voice broke through the crowd, a shaky yet determined young man stepping forward. "We're not alone. We stand together, right? Together." The crowd echoed, filling the hall with their fervor once more, the sound growing in intensity, reverberating against the walls like thunder. Sarah felt her heart soar, even as she knew the battle was far from over. But as she looked into the crowd, all she could see was their resolve, a tether binding them together. Mr. Jennings and his group exchanged worried glances. A new tension crackled in the air. In the back of her mind, Sarah heard a truth lurking quietly. Was this really the moment they had been waiting for, or just the beginning of something more sinister? And as the masked thread of intimidation started to crack under their unity, this new chapter was about to unfold in a way no one could anticipate. Stick together, Sarah urged, her voice slicing through the uncertainty. We'll fight this together no matter what. But deep within her, the storm of uncertainty swirled. What would that fight cost? And were they truly ready for the ramifications to come? Sometimes, living your truth meant walking into the unknown. Would they all choose to take that leap? As the echoes of their collective shout faded into the tense air, Sarah felt the warmth of camaraderie settle over the crowd like a comforting blanket. She glanced sideways at Chris, who now wore a fierce determination on his face. It ignited something in her, a spark that blazed against the chill of uncertainty. Now what? Someone shouted from the back, the desperation in the voice cutting through the momentary thrill of unity. Sarah took a breath, grounding herself in the weight of their shared fear and hope. We organize, she called back, her voice steady and resolute. We take action. We gather our stories, our histories, and we show them what we stand to lose. The mood shifted, a bubble of excitement forming as whispers of agreement fluttered through the crowd. Sarah's heart raced. This was their chance to reclaim their narrative. Chris leaned closer to her, excitement dancing in his eyes. We could set up a town meeting. Share everything, the good, the bad, the beautiful. Show them our lives, he said, his voice barely above a whisper, but filled with potential. Exactly. We can invite the community, everyone. We need to raise awareness and rally support, she exclaimed, feeling the energy spiral into something delectable and promising. The elderly woman who had been nodding supportively stepped forward. Her trembling hands clutched at the fabric of her blouse, eyes shining with a fervent light. I have lived here for over 50 years. This place is part of my soul. If we unite, maybe they'll listen. Her declaration ignited cries of encouragement, and each person began to share their thoughts. An older gentleman spoke of his childhood running through the streets, the laughter echoing off the walls of the homes they cherished. A young mother shared her fears about her child's future if their roots were stripped away. Sarah felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. Every story mattered. Each one was a thread weaving the fabric of their community, creating a tapestry that would be impossible to tear apart without losing its essence. As they planned their first town hall meeting, hope blossomed like wildflowers breaking through harsh soil. The group divided into smaller teams, each person springing into motion with newfound urgency. While she coordinated with others, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of eyes watching them. The men in suits, lingering just outside their gathered circle, whispered among themselves. Mr. Jennings' previous sweetness was now a frigid reminder that they were not alone. What would they do to quell this uprising? Hours passed, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, the crowd began to disperse, faces glowing with determination. Sarah lingered, clutching her notepad, imagining the stories they would tell, how they would show the world the heart of their community. But just as she turned to leave, Chris gently placed a hand on her shoulder. You really inspired them tonight, you know that? His blue eyes glimmered, drawing her in. Sarah smiled weakly, the weight of the evening sitting heavily on her heart. I just hope it's enough. What if it doesn't change anything? What if we're just a moment they bulldoze over us anyway? Then we fight harder, he said simply, and Sarah felt the fire rekindling within her. Together, we'll make them see. His words hung in the air, solid and unwavering, but uncertainty gnawed at her. As the last of the crowd filtered away, she glanced back at Mr. Jennings. He was observing them, that smirk creeping back onto his lips, a reassurance of their impending loss. The fear that loomed was thick. Sarah thought about their stories, about love and hope. Did they hold enough power to stave off the storm? Let us go, Chris urged as he started walking, but Sarah hesitated, glancing back one more time. Was it wise to provoke such forces? This entire movement had changed them, yet the path ahead felt tangled and unknown. How far would they have to go before their truth could finally carve out a place in the world? Their biggest challenge was yet to come, and Sarah felt a knot tightening in her stomach. Would the sacrifices be worth it? As night fell, a silence enveloped the air, leaving her with one haunting question echoing in her mind: that in the battle for their homes, who would be left standing at the end? The next morning, the air was thick with anticipation. The town hall meeting loomed large in Sarah's mind, a crescendo of uncertainty and hope that intertwined with the weight of their stories. As she prepared breakfast, each clink and clatter of the dishes echoed in the quiet house, a reminder that the world outside was waking up to a fight. "Mom, are you okay?" Her daughter, Mia, wandered into the kitchen, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Sarah turned, trying to mask the tension in her smile. "Just preparing for the meeting, honey. It's a big day." Mia tilted her head, sensing the undercurrents of worry. "Are you scared?" The question caught Sarah off guard. Sinking into a chair, she took a breath. "A little, but it's important. We need to show everyone how much this place means to us." "Like superheroes?" Mia asked, her wide eyes sparkling with innocence. "More like heroes with stories," Sarah chuckled softly, appreciating her daughter's perspective. After breakfast, they hurried out the door. As they walked through the neighborhood, Sarah tried to capture the sights and sounds: the morning dew on the grass, the golden light flooding through the trees. Each element whispered reminders of the life they were desperate to protect. Neighbors greeted them with nods and smiles, gathering details of their own lives and experiences. They traded stories, and with each shared moment, Sarah felt the strength of her community growing, binding them all like threads in a fabric too strong to unravel. But when they arrived at the town hall, a different energy coursed through the air. The building stood tall, almost oppressive, like a fortress. Several townsfolk had already gathered, whispering nervously among themselves, casting wary glances towards a group of suits leaning against a car. Mr. Jennings was there, flanked by his colleagues. The familiar smirk grew wider upon seeing them, a cruel reminder of his power. Sarah's heart raced, the fear returning like an unwanted guest. What would they do? Despite the unease, she forced herself to stand tall. Chris found her amid the crowd, urgency igniting his every word. "We're ready, right?" Stories in hand. She nodded, clutching her notepad, a lifeline. "Yes, but we'll show them. It's not just our stories, it's our lives, our homes." Chris's voice rose, drawing attention. It sent a ripple of determination through the crowd. Minutes passed before the meeting began, but it felt like an eternity. Sarah felt the weight of every story resting on her shoulders. The room filled quickly, voices rising in a chorus of anxious chatter that transformed into a tangible buzz. When it was time, Sarah took a deep breath and stepped up to the podium, her heart pounding. The room fell silent, all eyes fixed on her. She wasn't just representing herself. Each face in the crowd held a story: pain, joy, sacrifice. "Good evening," she began, her voice steady but soft. "We stand here not just for ourselves, but for our community." Each story matters, her words flowed, painting a picture of their shared experiences: the laughter, the heartbreaks, the history woven into every corner of their hometown. She glanced over at Chris, who gave her a supportive nod, encouraging her to dig deeper. Just as she began to feel the energy of their stories lift her, a shadow fell over her. Mr. Jennings cleared his throat. "If I may, we need to discuss the facts involved here." His tone dripped with condescension. "This is about progress." As the tension mounted, a chill swept through the room. Sarah's heart dropped. Could they really stand up against him? This wasn't just a meeting anymore. It was a battle for their home, their lives, and their future. In that moment, with the sound of her heartbeat deafening in her ears, she realized they needed more than just stories. They needed a plan, a real strategy to combat the powers threatening to silence them. Was this the moment that could change everything? The crowd looked up to her, waiting for guidance, for hope, for strength. As Sarah locked eyes with Chris, everything settled into clarity. This wasn't just about words, it was about action. How far would they need to go to protect what they loved? What sacrifices would they have to make to ensure their voices were heard? The weight of history pressed down like a storm cloud. But perhaps within the clouds lay the promise of rain, a chance to nurture their fight. Would their resolve be enough to shift the tide? The air in the town hall thickened, almost crackling with anticipation. Sarah stood, hands clutching the edges of her notes, her heart racing. All around her, the community seemed to pulse with unease, yet determination flickered in their eyes. Chris leaned closer, whispering, We need to turn this around. Right? Sarah replied, forcing a nod. The weight of expectation felt like a physical burden, one she never thought she would have to bear. Mr. Jennings continued, slick as oil, brushing off her words. This isn't about community, Sarah. It's about progress. We have plans, growth opportunities. This town has to evolve. His colleagues nodded in agreement, a chorus of suits echoing his rhetoric. A low murmur rose from the crowd, a swell of dissent that seemed to fill the room. Sarah's heart swelled with hope. They weren't alone. But she had to seize this moment. She took a step forward, letting the silence swallow anything Jennings might have said next. Development is not just concrete and steel. Her voice cracked with fervor. It's about the families that live here. It's about the stories we carry. What good is progress if it comes at the cost of our homes? Her words hung in the air, and for a moment, she thought she saw a flicker of respect in Jennings' eyes. But the moment passed, and he squared his shoulders, unyielding, unmoved. People adapt to change, Sarah. It's what separates us from those who choose to stagnate. You should consider how you want to be remembered. He leaned back, smug, as if he had proposed an unassailable point. The crowd gasped, resentment simmering and bubbling. Voices rose in discord, creating a mixture of anger and uncertainty amidst the hall. Sarah could see Mia peeking from the back, her little face filled with confusion. The sight swelled Sarah's emotions, a protective instinct ignited within, fierce and burning. We might be small, but we are not stagnant, she shouted, her voice carrying above the noise. Community isn't about adapting to someone else's vision. It's about preserving what's ours. It's about fighting for what we believe in. A woman near the front stepped forward, her face illuminated with resolve. My children grew up playing in those fields. They're not just empty lots, they're memories, our history. The crowd erupted into cheers, voices rising in solidarity, a chorus of shared experiences coming alive. But Jennings wasn't finished. Sentimentality will not save your homes. Decisions require cold, hard facts. Facts. Chris shouted back, his frustration palpable. What do your facts mean to us? Tell me, what community thrives on cold facts alone? We need a future, not a formula. More murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd, a palpable shift in the atmosphere. Sarah felt the tide turning. The momentum was on their side, gripping everyone tightly in its embrace. Seeing the spark of unity, she leaned into it, her voice clearer now. If we join our stories, we can create a narrative that can't be ignored. Together, we are loud. Together, we can fight. But if we scatter, we'll lose everything. Determination ignited in the faces surrounding her. They nodded, some wiping tears, others clenching fists. It was a moment of urgency, a moment of potential transformation. But Jennings stepped forward again, eyes narrowing. You may make noise, but progress is unwavering. What are you truly willing to lose to keep those memories alive? Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Would they risk everything? Would they push back against the looming threat? She could feel the weight of history leaning heavily and the future uncertain. The stakes felt impossibly high. In that very moment, the real question dawned on her. What sacrifices lay ahead for the sake of their fight? And was preservation of their home worth the cost of their comfortable lives? As the hall reverberated with heavy breaths, Sarah's thoughts swirled. The struggle was only beginning, and the reality was stark. Would they rise up to the challenge? Would their courage see them through? A spark of action ignited within her. There was no turning back. Now, what deeper truths would they uncover, and how would they unite to claim their future? As she locked eyes with Chris, she knew they were building more than just resistance. They were forging a new identity, one fueled by love and community. Would they emerge victorious, or would they crumble beneath the weight of greed? The answers lay just ahead. The tension in the room thickened, wrapping around Sarah like an unyielding embrace. She could feel the collective heartbeat of her community, pulsating with fear, yet flickering with a newfound hope. The murmurs of dissent now felt like a synchronized movement. Together, they were challenging the status quo. Enough! A voice rang out from the back of the hall, cutting through the noise. It was Mrs. Thompson, the town's schoolteacher, her usually calm demeanor ignited with passion. You can't just bulldoze our memories because they're inconvenient for your plans. Our children need to learn what this town stands for. That simple statement seemed to echo. The crowd surged with energy, fists were raised, and a chorus of agreement erupted. It wasn't just the young people who were angry faces that had endured decades of change looked resolute, reflecting a shared history that couldn't be erased by new blueprints. Sarah seized the moment. We have to think about the values we want to pass on. This town has always been about connection. We can grow, evolve without tearing apart the very fabric of our community. As the cheers rolled through the hall, Mr. Jennings' confident facade began to crack. His colleagues exchanged glances, sensing the shift in power. Sarah could practically feel the tide turning, each voice building into a wave that threatened to break down Jennings' smugness. What happens to the kids who won't have anywhere to play? Chris interjected, pushing through the crowd. What about the families, the stories, the traditions that have shaped who we are? Are we just going to flush it all down the drain for profit? His words cut deep, sending ripples of discomfort through those who had remained ambivalent. It took only one moment to shift the atmosphere from passive agreement to passionate dissent. Couples held hands, and families huddled together. The sense of community had never felt so tangible. Mr. Jennings opened his mouth to retort, but Sarah pressed on. The memories, those fields, the annual fairs, the laughter echoing through the streets, none of it is just sentimentality. It is our identity. Are we really willing to sell our souls for a temporary gain? The hall fell silent, her question hanging heavy in the air. For a heartbeat, Sarah battled uncertainty herself. Was she leading them into a fight they couldn't win? Yet, looking around at the eager faces, the glimmering eyes of children, she knew they had to try. Yes, we're willing to fight. We're willing to show you what truly matters. Mrs. Thompson said, her voice unwavering. That resolved sentiment felt electric, rippling through everyone present. With each heartbeat, Sarah felt less nervous and more powerful. Let us plan a rally. Let us gather everyone. Let us show everyone what we stand for. The crowd erupted in excitement, agreement transforming into palpable energy. People started talking over one another, ideas sparking like fireworks. Posters, pamphlets, songs, and rallies took shape in the hall as faces lit up with purpose. As Chris caught her eye again, she felt the strength of him beside her. Looks like we're really doing this, huh? He asked, his words layered with awe. Yeah, she replied, her heart swelling with hope. We're not just defending our homes. We're reclaiming our story. Just when Sarah thought the atmosphere might finally break into a celebration, Mr. Jennings was not done yet. He leaned forward, his stance fierce. You think this is just going to disappear? I advise you all to reconsider your resolve. The fight won't be easy, and I assure you, I have the resources and support you can't even fathom. A hush fell over the crowd again. Fear flashed briefly in eyes that only moments ago burned with passion. Was Jennings right? Did they stand a chance against something that felt so powerful? With bated breath, Sarah saw determination flicker back to life in Chris. It lit up her own heart, warming the cold fear threatening to creep in. We've already taken the first step, she whispered, her voice resounding with steadiness. Together, we can face whatever comes next. But as they rallied further into plans, with the air charged with possibility, a creeping doubt lingered. What would happen when they met that formidable force head-on? They were ready to fight, but what awaited them might be more than they ever expected. The days leading up to the rally felt exhilarating and terrifying, all at once. Sarah and her community embraced the momentum swirling around them like a whirlwind. Ideas flowed, excitement crackled, and posters sprung up across town, each one a colorful reminder of their unity. Families and neighbors painted their memories, their hopes, and their resolve on those sheets of paper. The day of the rally dawned bright and clear. As the sun poured down, casting a warm glow over their small town, Sarah felt a swell in her chest. She stood beside Chris and Mia, who wore matching shirts with our home, our stories emblazoned across the front. The turnout was staggering. Families from every corner, old friends, and newcomers alike filled the park, each face a testament to the bonds they had forged in the face of adversity. The crowd buzzed with laughter and chatter, every voice intertwining with the next. As the makeshift podium came into view, Sarah felt time slow, the moment heavy with anticipation. She took a breath, steadying herself against the overwhelming energy that surged through them all. This was more than just a rally. It was a celebration of community. As she stepped up to speak, the crowd quieted, every pair of eyes focused on her, and there, in the front row, was Mr. Jennings. He was dressed sharply, as always, his eyes scanning the crowd. But today, they were met with something different. Defiance masked with a joyful determination. "Thank you all so much for being here today." Sarah's voice rang clear across the park. "This isn't just about saving our homes. It's about preserving our community, our history, and the stories that make us who we are." Cheers erupted, forming a wave of sound that echoed against the trees. One by one, people began to step up, each sharing their own memories, stories of laughter that had danced through the air, tears that had been shed, and the shared experiences that bonded their community. A young mother spoke of her children playing in the local playground, while an elderly gentleman recalled sweet summer evenings spent barbecuing on the same block where they all stood now. Each story built upon the last, feeding off the energy of the crowd that was growing more fervent by the minute. With every word, the unified spirit swelled, making them feel invincible. Even Chris took his turn, his small hands holding tightly onto the microphone as he shared the tales of those women from the Imperial Harem whose courage had inspired him and his family. "If they could change hearts and lives, so can we," he exclaimed, and the response was thunderous. But amid the camaraderie, Sarah caught sight of Mr. Jennings shifting, his face a portrait of irritation. He was losing control of the narrative, and it showed. As more stories unfolded, his smug confidence began to crack, revealing the overt threat of his presence. When it was time for Sarah again, she leaned into the risk of this moment. "Mr. Jennings and those who stand with him believe they can erase our story, but together, here and now, we are reclaiming it. Let us turn our love for this community into action. We need to stand firm, together, and fight for our home." The wave of cheers grew into a roar, palpable and empowering. It became clear, the crowd was ready and willing to fight. They filled the air with chants, their voices rising like an anthem. "Our homes, our hearts. Together, we one part." In the face of such unity, the storm of intimidation Mr. Jennings represented seemed increasingly feeble. As he stepped forward to speak, the energy shifting from fear to scrutiny. The crowd quieted, and every set of eyes locked onto him. "I don't think you fully comprehend the implications of this charade," he said, his voice belittling. "Progress is a given. You will be eventually forgotten when tomorrow rolls in." But Sarah felt a renewed strength swell as she said, "We won't be forgotten. You might see us as a temporary barrier, but we're here as a community. Our lives are not just statistics on a balance sheet." As she spoke, the crowd erupted again, each voice rising with more determination than before. Mr. Jennings's demeanor shifted, his confidence waned, and for the first time, uncertainty flickered in his eyes. While he continued to speak, Sarah's heart raced. They were gaining ground. The very foundation of fear that had loomed started to crumble beneath their fervent determination. The stories being shared were more than words. They were weapons connecting threads that could not be severed. Moments turned into hours. The sun began to set low on the horizon. As the final chants echoed across the park, Sarah felt an overwhelming wave of pride wash over her. The community had not only found their voices, they had bonded in ways she couldn't have imagined. With tears glimmering in her eyes, she turned to Chris and Mia, who flanked her side. "This is only the beginning, isn't it?" she said, her voice filled with hope. "Yes," Chris grinned, beaming with newfound confidence. "We showed up, that's what matters." Together, they left the gathering with the crowd, knowing they had ignited aspirations that could not just withstand the storm, but had the potential to change the entire narrative. The future was still unclear, filled with uncharted waters. Yet Sarah felt an undeniable truth run through her veins. They were not just survivors, but champions of a greater story. United, their narrative would endure, and through the shared strength of their voices, they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. As they turned the corner towards home, tired and exhilarated, Sarah whispered, "We did it." "Yes, we did," Chris replied, his voice steady and proud. And as the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting vibrant hues of orange and pink across the sky, the shadows of doubt faded, leaving room for the gentle glow of hope, a promise of new beginnings. Now it was time to solidify their stand. Sarah felt it in her heart. This community would rise together, with stories to tell, resolute and ready for whatever the world threw their way. This was their moment. Together, they were unstoppable. Now, you've made it to the end of this powerful journey. But don't hesitate to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will touch your heart. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Trust me, it makes a huge difference. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this inspiring ending. We want to hear your thoughts, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this incredible transformation. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now, and make sure your voice is part of our community. Don't wait not even one more second to share.